Just before we start, one thing that came to my mind, and lest I forget it. Given the amount of superstition and pseudoscience, I admired what you're doing. So probably that's usually the last thing that's said at the end of a conversation. But let this be the first thing I want to say.
Why would you say that? I'm curious.
Because I'm fighting the same thing. The kind of bias, subjectivity, ill-placed belief in oneself, and dogmatic self-confidence that's going around.
Right.
I suppose that's what is killing everybody, including the very planet.
Right.
So we need much more of what you are attempting.
Right.
And we need many more professionals to come out and speak for the facts. Otherwise, everybody is touting his opinions, and that is no good.
Right.
It doesn't take anybody anywhere. Yes, we can start.
Thank you for that. And in fact, that makes it a great starting point for our conversation.
Yes.
Because I have always been a scientific student. I did my MBBS, my MD, and then I did 3 years in neurology. And all of my belief systems are informed through what I have read in my medical textbooks and through scientific textbooks.
Right.
And now when I think about spirituality, and I have been thinking about spirituality, the first problem that I came across was, is this a soft science? Is there any way I can confirm this? Can the same principles of science be applied in my study of spirituality? So today I have this golden opportunity to sit with you. You are one of the foremost experts of spirituality in our country.
Most welcome.
So I would like to start this conversation in that point, which is, for a scientific student, how should they approach spirituality?
You see, science is hard.
Yeah.
Hard in the sense that it leaves no scope for subjective feelings or emotions or biases, right? A fact is a fact. And a fact is a fact if it is verifiable, falsifiable, replicable. Somebody else can come and test it. And it can be tested not just today, but at any point in time. And if there is even a single observation that negates my hypothesis, then my theory stands rejected.
Yes.
So there is a constant attempt, a very rigorous attempt in science to not to let the ego interfere, the self interfere.
Right.
I might like the fact, I might not like the fact, that doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm measuring the time period of a simple pendulum and I might be running a fever.
Right.
That doesn't alter the reading. I might be in a very bad mood. A man measures the thing, a woman reads the observation, they are supposed to be the same. Black or white, young or old. In that sense, the person doesn't count. And if that be the definition of hard, then spirituality is harder. Because you have to be your own witness. Here you are witnessing something that you might only be very superficially connected to. You know, that's a pendulum.
Yeah.
And I've inherited that from my grandmother, so there might be some relationship.
Yeah.
And you're observing the pendulum.
Yeah.
But what is spirituality? Spirituality is self-knowledge. Spirituality is not about spirits. It is about the self.
Right.
So Adhyatma is Atmagyan. Spirituality is self-knowledge. So what is to be observed? The self.
Right.
And with the self has a relationship of identity. I am that. I am myself.
Yes.
It is harder because all kinds of biases and prejudices are bound to creep in.
Yes.
Witnessing is the heart of all self-observation.
Absolutely.
If you cannot look at yourself neutrally, without attachment, without conclusions, without biases, without your images, if you cannot look at yourself, there can be no self-knowledge. You would be in an echo chamber. You would be just listening to what you already think about yourself.
Right.
You would never come to see who you really are. So in that sense, spirituality is harder. But that leads us into a problem. The problem is that if you mess up in science, somebody else would come and catch you. If you publish something, there is always a provision for peer review, for example.
Yes.
In spirituality, there can be no peer review because you are to be your own observer. And if you are adamantly insisting, I'm already good. No, I'm not afraid. No, I'm not greedy.
Right.
There is no way somebody else can come and conclusively prove to you that you are misplaced. So while spirituality is harder, it is also vulnerable to being inexact, biased, and corruptible. And we see that all around us, don't we? How the whole field gets corrupted.
Yes.
And that is why science is luckier. And that's why we could have a linear progress in science. One could build on the knowledge of the other.
Others.
We are standing on the shoulders of giants, as somebody said. In spirituality, it is not possible to stand on somebody else's shoulder.
Right.
You have to do your own work.
Every human starts from the Stone Age, so to speak.
Wonderful. Very well said. Very well said.
I have debated this question multiple times with myself and with others, and I have to say that is one of the clearest answers to that question that I've ever gotten. Thank you so much, because that correlation between spirituality and science, where spirituality is the study of the self, all the problems that science faces, somebody in a spiritual pursuit also faces.
Right.
In science, when somebody is publishing a research paper, in the end, every author is supposed to write conflict of interest. वो लिखना पड़ता है.
Wonderful, wonderful.
But in spirituality, when you are observing yourself, when do you declare conflict of interest?
That disclaimer has to be perpetual.
Right.
Because I am my own observer, so I'm very, very likely to be biased.
Yes.
In spite of my best efforts, some degree of bias would creep in. And that's the very definition of humility.
Yeah.
To know that you are imperfect, that even if you are trying your best, some degree of evolutionary, physical, psychological baggage will make itself felt.
I have noticed, and this is a common thing around doctors, which is that you could be a great doctor, a great surgeon, as long as you're operating on people you don't know. But if I have to operate on my wife, my son, my daughter,
yes,
my hands will shake.
Right.
So at the highest level of science and knowledge also, when things get personal,
right,
all science starts becoming shaky.
Right.
I now understand why spirituality is difficult. What is the way out then? Because nobody else can do my spiritual journey for me.
Right. To see that all science will become not only useless, but actively harmful if there is absence of self-knowledge. You see, science gives the one within tremendous power, especially after science evolves into usable technology. So there is me, there is this world. Let's start with this dualistic model. There is somebody in here who is the perceiver of the world, who is the doer of deeds, and who is the user of technology. There is somebody in here, and there is the world out there. Science means I know this world more meticulously now, which means I can use these resources towards the appeasement of my desire in a more intense way. But since I don't know myself, I'm not spiritual. Since I don't know myself, hence I do not know where my desire is coming from. Therefore, it's like a monkey now having access to the nuke button. I remain that same primordial thing within, but externally I have gained a lot of power.
Right.
So, as science progresses, it becomes all the more important, how should I put it, mandatory, that spirituality should progress in equal proportion.
Right.
Science without spirituality is disastrous, and that's what is happening on this planet today. What else is this entire specter of climate change?
Correct.
You know, we know so much about the world. We today are scientifically, economically more progressed than we ever were in our evolutionary history.
Right.
And what has been the result of that progress? We probably are entering the 6th mass extinction phase.
Right.
And this one is man-made. The previous 5 were not.
Right.
So, in the era of great scientific progress, spirituality becomes mandatory, something that just, cannot avoid, indispensable.
So here I have a conflict. On the one hand, yes, absolutely. If I think about the scientific progress that has gone behind, say, me eating a chocolate cake.
Right.
So cocoa seeds from Africa flown here, big industries making that cake, making sure it's shipped to me. But in the end, the final result is me eating that cake to give me a dopamine spike,
Right.
to make the monkey in me happy.
Right.
All of this technological progress just for that one pleasure.
Right.
But on the other hand, isn't that core motivation what is driving technology forward? Aren't we doing things because we are basically monkeys at heart?
Yeah, so then we aren't doing anything for ourselves then. You see, if the net result of that entire scientific endeavor was to raise the dopamine level, then everything was done by dopamine for itself. I didn't do anything. Whatever was done by dopamine. Because the net result was an increase in
that pleasure.
that dopamine level.
Yes.
The dopamine level.
Yes.
Right? So we know how systems operate. We also know that within systems, variables can have a tendency to maximize themselves. So this too is a system. And within this system, a variable can have a tendency to maximize itself.
Right.
So, because you come from that background, the rabies example might be particularly instructive. You know, the virus is now there in the dog's body. And the virus makes the dog bite someone.
Correct.
So that the virus can enter the other body. Did the dog bite the other person? No. It was the virus that made the dog bite the other person. Similarly, did I opt for chocolates? No, I didn't. It was the dopamine that made me opt for chocolates. So the dog has done nothing. It's the virus that is commanding the dog. Similarly, who am I? If I am being commanded by my physical composition, I am then nobody. And then there is no dignity in life, because then I am a slave to my chemicals, my hormones and other things. There is no consciousness then. Yes. Because at the heart of consciousness lies the ability to witness yourself, lies the ability to not be dictated by your mechanical, chemical, biological composition.
Right. We have reached consciousness way too early in the conversation, because I have realized that this is the hard problem of science. Right. Once we reach consciousness, there are very few paths to go from there. I want to take a slight step back to understand some core aspects of, I'm going to say, Hinduism, because you said a word adhyatma, and there are a few terms like this which do get used, but I feel people might not know the root meaning. So can I ask you the meanings of some words like
Wonderful,
this?
wonderful.
So adhyatma you mentioned was knowledge of
knowing oneself deeply.
the atma.
So adhi, atma. No, not atma.
Okay.
The one that you are, the self. Atma is a pointer towards the purest self possible. Adhyatma does not refer to knowing the Atma. Atma is conceptually so pure that it cannot be known. It's unknowable, agyeya. So Adhyatma refers to knowing who you are as a fact, not who you are in the utopian sense, in the idealistic sense. So Adhyatma is about knowing the very basic facts of your existence. For example, yes, I am envious. That's Adhyatma. Oh yes, I am covetous. That's Adhyatma. Adhi, what does Adhi refer to? More. That's from where Adhik comes, Adhikya. So Atma, the self, not Atma. Not Atma. Self, you as you are in your normal day-to-day life.
Is that what is referred to as mindfulness?
Not really, because mind, is just the aggregation of objects around the Atma. So this Atma is more correctly referred to as Aham, I, me, Ahankar.
Right.
And this Aham is a basic sense of psychological incompleteness. So to fill itself up, it gathers stuff around itself.
Right.
For the sake of feeling secure or feeling complete. So those objects all, sit in the mind.
Right.
And the aggregation of those objects and the relationships between them, all that taken together is defined as the mind or man. So man is the entire structure around Aham. Aham is the center, and man is the universe around that center.
There is there are levels to reality. I had read this somewhere, that there is a subjective reality and there's an objective reality. So that mind that we create around us seems to be the subjective reality that we create.
Yes.
A branch of Hinduism is Advaita. Am I saying it correctly? Is it a branch of Hinduism?
It is the very basis of Sanatan.
Okay. So I don't understand this concept at all. So could you explain?
I'll bring it to you using the subjectivity paradigm that you just initiated.
Yeah.
You see, there is the subjective, purely subjective universe in which you are the Lord and you can think of anything. Subjectively, I feel I'm a better tennis player than Federer, and I'm entitled to do that.
Right.
Nobody can dispute that. So that is taken as the lowest level of reality that you could call as the imaginary reality. But even that is real to me. Even that is real to me.
Yes.
Then a higher level of reality is the factual reality. It is a reality that you would probably corroborate. If I say, for example, there stands a wall, you would attest that, yes, I agree that's a wall. And such things that different beings at different times can verify to each other are known as facts. What else is the definition of a fact? I too have only my senses to finally determine that something is, that something exists.
Yes.
And the same thing you too do. So that is factual reality.
Right.
And then there is the highest reality, in which you say, fine, that's the wall out there, but who is the one in here who is looking at the wall? And here you want to look at both of these together. And when you can look at both of these together, that's taken as the highest reality, truth, satya. Satya. So you start from kalpana, that's called the pratibhasik level, imaginary level. You move to a higher level, that's called the tathyatmak, factual level, or vyavaharik level, practical level. And then you come to the highest level. That highest level is the level of truth, satya, or paramarthic level. So Advaita, what you said, Advaita is the topmost level. The entire spiritual journey is about ascending from these two to the highest. So Advaita is the very end of the entire Sanatan journey.
Understood. In biological terms, when I read neuroscience, I had this one moment where the walls broke for me. Because I suddenly realized while I was reading, and I remember the chapter, I was reading about eye physiology. So how light goes into the eye, and then how does those electric signals travel through the brain until finally we are aware of what we are seeing. And I was reading it from the perspective of a medical student, but I suddenly realized that, which means that what I'm seeing and what is actual reality is separated by a lot of electric currents.
Yes. And time.
So I'm always looking at the past.
Always look at the past.
I can never look at the present. I am never in the present.
So there's nothing called living in the present.
It's not possible.
In not the conventional way, at least.
No, biologically impossible to live in the present. And I had to put the book down because, you have a bit of existential crisis that, wait, what is real? So after I went through that, I think I went through these 3 levels in half an hour, which made me think that maybe a lot of what is written in these textbooks actually refer to these very real biological phenomenon, but because they were using different words, scientists are not referring to those books.
Right.
Because now all of this makes sense to me even from a neuroscience perspective.
Right.
Now, in Advaita, what is the path in Advaita to reach the highest level?
The path is to examine any path you have chosen for yourself. That is the path. So Advaita is the pathless path. Advaita says anybody and everybody at any given point is on some path or the other. And what is a path about? A path is about your mental complexes, your desires, your choices. That's your path, right? So at this moment, for example, one might be very concerned about, I have to go and shop and the whole thing closes at 9.
Yeah.
So that's the path. Somebody is saying, I want to meditate. For that person, that's the path. Somebody is on some other way, some other desire, some other project. That's the path.
Right.
A path is not necessarily religious or whatever. Path simply means the direction that the mental space is taking. Now that space in everybody does have some direction because none of us are settled beings. None of us is yet on the mountain top. So we are constantly in a flux, we are moving. The way of Advaita is observe your movement, observe your path. And that's all. So there is no particularly prescribed path and there is no proscribed path either. There is nothing that Advaita Vedanta specifically negates or prohibits. It says, you are, here is your life, here is this movement, here are your choices. Look at yourself. Look at yourself.
So I could be on my path right now just by knowing that I am here talking to you and this is how I feel and this is the truth.
The truth is when you can see how these two realities, the one within and the one that you are experiencing outside, are one. Otherwise, there is an artificial sense of separation. one feels that there is this universe and there is me. And we two are distinct. But when these two can be seen together, then the separation falls. And that is non-duality. Now, I will not go into non-duality. We'll understand what duality includes first of all. And that will probably help us with a pointer towards non-duality. You see, if I do not know myself, and some wonderful, delicious aroma comes wafting, I would insist, I want that food item.
Yes.
I want that food item.
Yes.
In the sense, there's that food item and there is me, and the two of us are separate, and it's my decision to want that food item. Or if I'm walking down a road and I look at a hoarding carrying an advertisement, and there is a new model of a mobile phone displayed, I'll say, I want that phone.
Yes.
It's a sovereign decision I have made. To be able to look at these two together means I'm able to see how my internal processes have all been governed by that external fact, that I do not exist independently of that aroma or that hoarding. That what I call as my desire is nothing but a function of what I am perceiving on the outside.
You're responding or reacting to...
I'm just reacting like a chemical. There is no difference. There is just no difference. Chemical A falls on chemical B. Does chemical B have a choice?
No.
Similarly, I smelled that food item and I said I want it. Did I really have any choice? Potentially, probably I had. Potentially, maybe. But the way we live, we have no choice. Since we have no choice, therefore, I could say we are enslaved. And that's where human suffering lies. So that's the usual duality we live in. And then, this was a case of that informing this, that making this a function of itself. That is the food item or the advertisement. Now that has been able to colonize this. Or that has been able to penetrate here and get implanted. The whole thing can be seen in a reverse way as well. I want something. Or let's say I'm looking for somebody. And there is an entire crowd somewhere there. What do I end up looking at? Only that face that I have been looking for.
Yes.
If somebody asks me who all are there in that crowd, I won't be able to answer.
Correct.
Because it's somebody particular I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So what has happened? The nature of that crowd to me has been determined by me. To me, that crowd is that one person.
Yes.
To somebody else, that crowd could be some other person.
Somebody else. Yes.
So what is happening now is that this is informing that.
Yes. So in the first circumstance, the advertisement is informing you.
Me.
And the second circumstance, you are informing the environment.
And in practical life, these two do not happen alternately.
They both happen together.
They happen together. And that's duality. Where I am dependent on that and that is dependent on me. And at least one of us two thinks that he is independent. And this is called Maya. Illusion. You think you are independent, you are not.
You're not.
And it's not just a matter of fact that you're not independent. It is a matter of suffering. Because you're not independent, therefore your desires are not yours. Therefore you spend your life chasing something that you never actually needed to chase.
Right. Anyone who has been through a relationship and has broken up will see the face of their ex everywhere they go. Even somebody who looks slightly like that person, they will remind them of them. Because now the brain is constantly walking around with that reference in mind.
I'll give an example. Somebody quoted it to me. I found it instructive. He said, I'm about to buy a particular model of car now. He says, when I'm traveling down the expressway,
Yeah.
all I notice is that particular model. There are so many cars, but my eyes always come to rest on that particular model.
Yes.
So that's how we determine the external reality.
Yeah.
And nobody could authentically claim that there is an objective universe really.
Yeah.
This universe that we think of is a function of who we are.
Right.
Science would very openly agree to that. You see, the colors that we are looking at are determined by the capacity of these eyes.
Yes.
And the optical nerves.
Yes.
4,000 angstrom, 8,000 angstrom.
Right.
Less than that, more than this.
Yeah.
The universe does not exist. Not that we cannot see.
Yeah.
We will say the universe does not exist.
Yeah.
Less than 20 hertz, more than 20,000 hertz. Nobody said anything.
No sound.
Nobody said anything. Not that I cannot hear. Not that nothing is being said. Nobody said anything. So we
remove the existence of that thing itself.
Yes, and we superimpose something on the nature of the universe itself. We do not say that it is my projection. We say the universe is an objective reality in which only 20 to 20,000 hertz exist.
Yes.
Put it this way. Interesting question. You'll relish this one. If there is something you can neither see, nor hear, nor smell, nor touch, and not even think of, does that thing exist?
No.
So, the definition of existence itself depends on my sensory capabilities. The definition of existence itself. So, what is the universe then? An objective reality?
Correct.
Can there anything be objective? There is nothing called an objective reality. Everything that is objective owes its existence to my senses. And if something falls totally outside the purview of my senses, it ceases to exist. The universe is gone.
Correct.
Somebody would say, but if I cannot look at something, does it not exist? Suppose I close my eyes and walk into a pillar, won't I be hurt? I'm saying let's tighten the conditions.
Yeah.
Something you cannot see, not even hear, and not even touch, and not even mentate, not even think of. Now, does it exist?
No.
So the universe is very much dependent on my senses.
There are so many levels to this. There's this phrase that if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and there's nobody there to see it, did it really fall? Who knows? If you observe a child is very entertained by this game called peekaboo.
Okay.
Because in that child's brain, for those few seconds when you close the child's eyes or you disappear behind a curtain, the child's brain is not able to grasp this concept that something can exist when it is not in front of me. So when you come back out, the child is filled with surprise.
And giggles. How they happen here?
In its brain, it has solved a riddle.
Right.
So according to the child, it has solved a major problem.
Yes.
I realized now that you were saying this, that you never outgrow this. Out of sight, out of mind is something that is always going to exist. If you were to think of, if our eyes became capable of seeing even a few wavelengths left and right of the spectrum, the world will look very different.
Oh, the universe would expand.
The universe would expand.
The universe would expand. If my eyes could look at a wider spectrum, the universe itself would expand. If my mind could think differently in different dimensions, again the universe would expand. So is there something called an objective universe, or is it all dependent on me?
Yeah. I think physics is coping with this when it is trying to deal with dark matter. and it is trying to deal with subatomic particles, because these are things that don't lend themselves to, let's say, easy measurement.
They don't lend themselves to the framework in which there is an objective reality.
Right.
Now physics has come to a point where observations are being altered by the very presence of the observer.
Yes.
Now, so what do you do now? You cannot say this thing is. You will also have to write the name of the observer and mention the specific conditions under which the observation took place.
Correct.
Which is very new to science. We never used to do that, you know. Thing is a thing, irrespective of who made that observation and such things. All right, for the purpose of humanistic gratitude and expression, we say Newton's laws.
Yeah. But it could have been anyone.
Could have been anyone, and you remove Newton, the laws remain as they are.
Correct.
But now physics has come to a point where you cannot say that the thing exists independently of the observer.
So what you're saying is you can only avoid subjectivity up to a point.
You'll have to fully endorse subjectivity. That's Advaita. Ahamev hi kevalam. All this is the great self and nothing else is. So Advait Vedant is surrender to total subjectivity, and that complete total subjective unit, that ultimate unity is called Atma or Brahma or Satya, the truth.
Small little conflict here is that in the journey towards surrender, the words sound a lot like self-indulgence, because we think of the self initially as me. So it sounds almost narcissistic that I am everything. But at the end also, the words are the same, but the meaning seems to be very different.
Right. That's why in language, care was taken to differentiate between these two. One was called aham, that which you call as yourself.
My identity,
my personal self, my little self.
Yeah.
So that was the aham. And that absolute self, that was Atma. And when the learned ones wrote about that in English, they said self with a small s and self with a capital S. Because these two must be seen as distinct. Otherwise, as you very rightly said, narcissism is just around the corner.
Exactly.
You will equate these two and say, I am the one.
Exactly.
I am the one. That absolute reality is me. Me. So that
Me, Siddharth.
Me, Siddharth. Me, this embodied one.
Yes.
This one. So,
I have a proposal. I feel English needs to get updated, and we should use small I and big I.
Yes. I mean, small I would suffice.
Because even the idea of using a big I for the self is quite, I now realize is quite narcissistic.
Quite narcissistic. You see, this I that we talk of is actually not I. It is just a play of chemicals.
Right.
So there is no way this is to be confused with the pure or absolute self.
Right.
This that we call as our existence, isn't it so much material? I mean, for example, where is the personal consciousness sans the body?
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Is it possible to alter the body and yet let consciousness remain unaffected? You know, one drinks and what happens to consciousness?
Yeah, changes.
One falls and bangs his head, and for 10 minutes one does not know what's going on.
Yes.
So even simple physical events affect the consciousness so much. This consciousness that we have is just a thing. Just a thing. So there is no way this thing can be equated with the self. This consciousness that we have, I mean, since you come from that field, are you not able to measure it?
Yes, it's called Glasgow Coma Scale. You can measure,
right?
You can put a number on it.
I have very unfortunately witnessed somebody's number fall, and it slipped from 6, 5, 4, 3, and by the next morning we lost that person.
Yeah, 3 is the lowest.
Yes, we lost that person.
Yeah.
And it was measurable.
Yes.
Just like temperature is measurable.
Yes.
Just like pressure is measurable, just like any physical quantity is measurable.
Correct.
So this consciousness is certainly not me, because I am not a thing, but this consciousness is definitely a thing. It is affected by things, it is made by things. Just like things, it reacts to other things. Man looks at woman and reacts.
Yes.
I touch something hot and I balk away.
Yes.
I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. So it's not to be confused with that. And that's why the path of non-duality is the path of self-observation. The more you look at yourself, the more you are astonished by your material nature. Who am I? I'm just material. And the funny thing is, the more you can see that you are material, the more you are coming upon something that is beyond material.
So the path towards non-material is through
material. This is all that there is. There's nothing beyond this.
There's nothing beyond.
There's me, there's you, we have these bodies. There's nothing called supernatural reality, right? This is the world we inhabit, and this is all that we have.
Right.
But this world makes us suffer and puts us in bondage. We know the human condition.
Right.
Here, in America, everywhere, we know what we are doing. So this is the path. This world is the path.
When we talk about the path, there is, and you also mentioned about what we are doing to the world, there is a lot of harm that is happening. Climate change is one. Violence seems to be a very core instinct of, I won't say human nature, I would say animal nature. Violence is there in nature. Lion hunts a deer. There is violence through the food chain. So why is it different when a human being participates in violence?
No, that's not violence. That's chemicals dancing with each other.
You mean the intent?
There is no intent.
There is no intent.
There is no intent. A lion has no intent. Biologically, a lion is incapable of making a choice in favor of eating grass. So how can there be intent? The lion, by its physical, biological composition, is not equipped to make a choice. So there is no violence. When a lion hunts down a deer, that's not very different from a large polymer chain absorbing a small molecule into itself.
Right.
And that happens all the times,
Right.
Molecules merge into each other, they bond with each other, they do a lot of things with each other.
Yes.
What the lion is doing to the deer is much the same, because the lion has no choice. And in the absence of choice, the word violence is absurd.
Right.
Violence is only when I had a choice and I made the wrong one. So human beings can be violent. A lion can neither be violent nor non-violent. Ahimsa is not something that you can apply to any creature in the cosmos except man. So,
because of our ability to choose.
Because our ability to choose. And because of the fact that only we suffer if we don't choose rightly. Have you ever seen a lion suffering and repenting the life choices it made?
Got it.
You talked of the axe and the breakup.
Right.
And a lion, I don't suppose, suffers in the same way and to the same intensity.
Yeah.
So man is the only one who has choice, and the man is only one. By man I mean human beings, not really man as in male or female. No. So man is the only one who is equipped to make choices, and therefore man is the only one who greatly suffers if he does not make the right choice. Non-violence is when you resolve to yourself, I'll make the right choice. That's non-violence or ahimsa. So that includes not exploiting others for your petty gains. That includes that, but that's not limited to that. Non-violence goes much beyond your relationship with others. Non-violence is first of all about your relationship with yourself. So there's often this argument advanced in favor of, for example, flesh consumption.
Right.
That
should you consume non-vegetarian food?
Yeah, people say, the big fish is all the time eating the small fish, and had the creator God really wanted that animals should never be killed, then he should have never made any carnivores. That's a very flawed argument.
Why?
We are products of evolution. No God ever made us, first of all. And second thing, all the other products of evolution, they are built differently. They are built differently. Lions, for example, probably don't even have any idea of their lifespan. Right. If a lion dies early, I don't think it would think in whatever way it thinks, right, that it's coming to an early death.
Right.
They behave in very, very programmed and conditioned ways. They do what their body tells them to do. They are pretty innocent beings in that sense.
Right.
No lion would ever save money.
Right.
No lion would ever covet a throne. They do what they have been doing since, they covet a throne in the sense they fight among themselves for the leadership of the pack. But that's what they have been doing since millions of years.
Yeah. Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed, and nothing can change because they are like toys. They do what they are built to do. Human beings are the only ones. And I'm not saying out of sense of entitlement of belonging to my species.
Right.
I'm saying this out of my observation.
Right.
Human beings are the only ones who have this special thing called a perpetual restlessness. We are born restless. We want to know. We gather knowledge. We feel around. Yeah. We ask questions.
Curiosity.
We are curious.
Yes. And
we do not like our inner state of incompleteness or discontentment.
Right.
And therefore the word called liberation applies only to human beings.
Right.
We have never seen a cow yearning for liberation. A cow is all right as it is.
Right.
It would graze and So non-violence applies only to us, and non-violence is the only way to lead the right life. Or the right life is called a non-violent life. You could put it this way.
A non-violent life meaning you're not causing harm to other living creatures.
No, you know who you are and therefore what is in your best interest. How can I not cause harm to you if I do not know who you are? And if I do not know myself, will I know you as a fellow human being?
This is a difficult concept to grasp because, for one, I believe most people, when it comes to food, at least, because it is such a core drive, there is more of an animal instinct when it comes to food as opposed to other life choices. So maybe they can make more mindful choices when it comes to buying a car or a phone. But when it comes to food, maybe the animal in you does seem to act more, which is why the conversations around food are never polite. There's always this tribal nature that comes out.
That's true. But equally, the kind of importance that food has in an animal's life, it does not have in a human being's life. Think of what a monkey does the entire day. It looks around for food.
Yes.
We don't do that. I mean, sometimes we in fact skip meals and don't even remember we have skipped a meal.
Yeah.
There are other more meaningful things in life. And that's where lies the hint. Why clamor so much for food when life has been enriched with so much more? Can't we find satisfaction in higher pursuits? It's a monkey that has to care so much about food. I mean, as human beings, food probably occupies 2%, 5% of our consciousness. And I don't suppose you would particularly like a person if he's all the time dreaming of food. And if we do that, then we won't go too far in life.
So here's a difficult question, which is, from a spiritual perspective, is there reason to become a vegan?
You see, first of all, it's not about the other.
Okay.
It's not about the chicken or the goat or the cow or the animal being milked.
Yeah.
Spirituality, we said, is Atmagyan, self-observation. So it's about the self. So I suffer. I'm a human being. I'm born in this body. I suffer. And if I can see why I suffer, if I can see why I suffer, I realize there is a sense of incompleteness within. And that incompleteness makes me look at the entire world as a consumer, as an exploiter. I can look at the entire world as a hunter, as a consumer, which is all right. I can do that. What is not all right is that irrespective of the level, intensity, magnitude of my consumption, the incompleteness within just remains. Just remains.
Yes.
Just remains. I add this to my life, I accumulate that. So much I have gathered. No moral problem with that. One can gather. The universe is not run through moral principles. You can do whatever you want and ultimately you can die and all that. Fine. The problem is not in the fact that you will die one day. The problem is you are alive and suffering and you are giving yourself a false treatment. As a doctor, you resonate with that. I have not diagnosed my problem correctly and therefore I am offering myself one false treatment after the other. And what does that do to my condition? It worsens. It worsens.
This hoarding tendency that we have to...
Everything, just everything. I want to consume this, I want to consume that. And because an animal is helpless, so it can be consumed. Or milked. Or skinned. Whatever. The moment I see that, the very inclination to exploit the animal disappears. That doesn't really mean that you have to be an animal lover. That doesn't mean that. I, for example, won't consume a lot of things. That doesn't mean I love those things. And hence I'm not consuming them. The problem is, I kill animals and I do all kinds of vicious things because there is a hole in my heart. And when I start seeing that killing or whatever I'm doing, grabbing, clutching, all this is not in any way helping my condition, then I do not want to put my energy in that direction. I don't want to put it. It's not about having mercy on the animal.
Right.
It's not about going and hugging the animal. It's about seeing that this thing won't help. Won't help. You have been doing this since ages. It never helped anybody. And you want to continue down the same lane of agony.
I think that makes sense, because there is a lot of confusion, both from a medical perspective and from a climate change perspective. But my curiosity was, how do we approach this topic from a spiritual perspective?
Yes. Of course, when you look at it from a climate perspective, the arguments are very, very forceful, extremely forceful. You probably can do nothing to arrest the whole thing of climate change without reducing the level of animal slaughter and animal farming and these things. So that's from that direction. But from a spiritual perspective, there's just a general disinclination towards hurting you for my sake. Not because I have fallen in love with you, but because I know that I'm needlessly hurting. By hurting you, I will not gain anything. In fact, my condition would further deteriorate. So that's why.
It makes me think that just like how there is a carbon footprint, there should be a concept of spiritual footprint. How much harm are we causing over time?
It would require a very enlightened society. It's a beautiful thing you have just said. And I just hope we, as a process of evolution and resolution, come
Right.
to a point
Right.
where we could have a society that thinks on these lines. Wonderfully put.
There is this term called Sanatan Dharma. I have never fully understood it, but maybe it has come up more in public conversations recently. Could you explain what that term means?
Very scientific, very scientific. In fact, it has nothing to do with the kinds of arguments and biases and bigotry that it is associated with. So here we are as a species, human beings, and our defining characteristic is curiosity, or as I have repeatedly said today, a feeling of discontentment. And we have the required apparatus to support our curiosity in the form of the very well evolved brain compared to other beings. So, right from day one of the life of the first human being ever. I know there is nothing called the first human being ever. It's a continuous process.
Yes.
But just, hypothetically, what has been present? What has been the one thing in continuity, unbroken continuity? There's you, there's me. We have had our parents. There were people before them. And then there are our great and great and great ancestors. Irrespective of who they were and where they came from, if they qualified to be called human beings, what is it that they had and we too have? What is it? That is that one thing that we definitely share as human beings.
So biologically, there is a lot of organs, brain.
Psychologically,
probably an increasing sense of agency, I would say, because let's say 10 million years ago, there were monkeys, and somewhere around 3 to 4 million years ago, we had Homo erectus.
Right,
so they were using tools.
yes,
And they had opposable thumbs.
right.
So somewhere around that time, maybe we had more agency. We could control our...
Right. So everything has changed, right?
Yes.
They were not wearing any clothes. They were just beginning to use tools.
Yes.
They were just beginning to hold things.
Yes.
And they were exploring the world on two legs.
Yes.
And these things were happening. Everything has changed. What has not changed?
Urges, emotions.
What is it that you and I would have in common with that great ancestor of ours?
Fear of death.
Yes, and not have in common with any other species in the world.
Okay.
So there is something that the three of us share. You, me, and that ancestor, and we don't share it with the fish, with the birds, with the dinosaurs, with the insects. We don't share it with anybody.
Okay.
It's something private to our species. What's it?
Thoughts.
Yes, and what's at the basis of thoughts?
Love.
I mean, when do you think? When you are deeply in love, do you think?
No, you don't.
In your deepest moment of joy, do you think?
No.
When do you think?
When you are contemplative, you are able to...
And why do we think? If we don't think in joy, what does that tell us about thought? When do we think?
When there is a problem.
When there is a problem. And we are all the time thinking. We are a thinking species.
Yes.
We think much, much more intensely than a monkey does. Their thinking, even if it exists, is very primitive.
Yes.
So we think a lot. And we are saying we think when there is a problem.
Yes.
So you and I and that great ancestor, we all are problemed. Problemed. Man is born with a problem.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him think. No other species is born with a problem. It's the hard problem of existence. The existentialist said to be or not to be.
Yeah.
Why should I live at all? And then there were people who thought about it and meditated and said, the purpose of life is liberation. Liberation from all this entire thinking. So that's Sanatan. Sanatan means timeless, eternal, unending. The ahams, the self's quest for liberation, that's Sanatan Dharma.
Wow. I have to say that in all the contexts in which that word has come out, this meaning has never come out.
But there can be nothing but this.
Right.
Sanatan means that which is unbroken since the beginning of time, euphemistically.
Right.
And this is the only thing that is there. We want liberation. Aham wants Atma. The falseness within wants to be relieved. There is something within that's constantly crying for the truth because it feels entrapped.
Right.
And that's Sanatan Dharma. To live life in a way that liberates you.
Okay. So how do we term these words? Sanatan, Advaita philosophy, is one a subset of the other?
They are the same thing.
They're the same.
They are the same thing. Because liberation itself is liberation from imagined duality.
Right. Right.
We are born with a feeling that I am and the world is, and there is this dualistic separation.
Right.
And I exist to consume the world and gain happiness from it.
Right.
Is that not our normal philosophy?
Yes.
You are born to be happy. We say the purpose of life is happiness. And how do I be happy?
By
consuming the world. By consuming the world. So that's the primitive dualistic principle embedded in the body.
Yes.
As you are born.
Yes.
Non-duality is the pinnacle one has to reach. Duality is that you are born with.
So the very phrase hunter-gatherer assumes that there is something to hunt and gather. I got it.
We have remained hunter-gatherers. In that sense, psychologically, we have not evolved. We remained hunter-gatherers.
Right. And so the purpose of Sanatan Dharma or Advaita is to move beyond hunting gathering.
Move hunting gathering. Wonderfully put.
And then, so you are both you are the one that is being gathered.
Yes,
you are the one that is being hunted.
Yes. So as long as we remain the way we are, Dharma means that which is essential for you, that which you must be and do. That's Dharma. That which you must carry, literally, that's a literal word. That which you must carry. The obligation to be liberated is what you must carry always. That's Dharma.
I'm going to repeat that. The obligation to be liberated.
To be liberated.
We have an obligation.
You have an obligation towards yourself. Towards yourself. Otherwise, you are wasting your own life.
And it's not for anyone else.
Not anybody. Actually, there is no one else.
There is no one else.
There is no one else.
You have to keep catching yourself.
There is no one else. So if you are obliged, it's only towards yourself.
Right. And do you think it is possible to live like this?
You see, there is no template, no model. As I said, we all are on our paths. So there is nothing to copy. When you say live like that, then one is referring to a template to be copied.
Correct.
There's nothing to be copied. We are here.
Yeah.
There's this tea in front of me. The last time I sipped it, it has already gone cold. And I must catch myself reacting to the coldness, which I find unpleasant. And I must see what's the way this chemical is reacting to the temperature of this chemical.
Yes.
You know, there are chemicals that react only at certain suitable temperatures, don't they?
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
And this chemical found the temperature unsuitable, so the reaction was not as per the desire. And I have to catch that.
Yes.
And I have to do that all the time.
Now, if you were to do this with emotions, I'm sad, I'm happy, I am jealous, I'm angry. I have realized that in modern psychology, a lot of therapy is exactly this, which is if I am struggling and I don't know why, and I sit in front of a therapist, that therapist, he or she will make me observe my emotions, maybe make me write it down as a journal until I have clarity over what I am going through.
Lovely.
घूम फिर के यही पे आता है.
Right. There is no other therapy because there is no other disease. The only disease inwardly is identification with what you are not. No, I'm not my hand. I'm not my arm. And I am not therefore my chemicals. And therefore I'm not my feelings or emotions. But if I pretend to be my feeling or emotions, that's as absurd as pretending to be my nail. I cannot be this nail. Fine, there is this nail. And I might have some relationship with it. But being in a relationship is very different from being that.
Being that. Now, as a doctor, I have a dharma conflict which is my dharma, is to treat that collection of cells and chemicals. And I have to heal that body. I have to heal that person. And that person identifies with the disease that they have. This conversation is almost impossible to have in a hospital, right? When somebody is coming in the midst of suffering, they are too intertwined with the disease. So it's not that they have experienced a heart attack. Eventually, they are the one with a heart attack because that is their...
One must not have the conversation there. There is no need. That's why we talked of the 3 levels of reality. There is no point to initiating this conversation there. But if this conversation becomes commonplace, the number of people coming to the hospital with heart attacks is likely to reduce.
Can you tell me why would you say that?
We know, I mean, you know actually much better than I do, what cardiac diseases are a result of.
Stress, our lifestyle. Yeah.
I identify with my car so much. If something happens to it, I feel pressure here. But if I can see the right relationship between me and that car, which is possible only if I first of all see the right relationship between me and this body that occupies the car, then I'm likely to feel a little less stressed irrespective of what happens to the car. Therefore, the probability of me falling into the hospital would be reduced.
Yeah. There is a lot of truth to this, because that conflict between self and outside is actually what our brain is going through all the
time.
The source of stress is that my objective reality, objective reality does not match with my subjective reality, and that causes conflict.
And that conflict will always be there as long as there is an attempt to align the two. Now, aligning two things is one thing. Seeing that the two are one is totally different. Totally different.
I see the difference. There is a unique struggle that the youth in our country are going through, which is, on the one hand, they are deeply involved into social media. So they are into their phones, into YouTube, all of that. On the other hand, they're also struggling with conflicts, inner turmoil. And I have seen certain movements where they go towards spirituality. And at least I feel that maybe they're not being guided in the best way possible. With one recent example that came in our conversations was this, it's called NoFap. It is about this demonization of sexual thoughts. And there is a lot of correlations around it, which is that you should not indulge in any sort of self-pleasure. And this has been banned, or this has been prohibited by our
traditional spirituality. Yeah.
First of all, is there any truth to that?
Somebody who knows the anatomy and has studied medicine would be better placed to say that. But what I feel is that semen retention in itself sounds a pretty stupid term. The body knows what to retain and what not to. You cannot tell the kidneys what to retain and what to expunge. You cannot tell your epidermal cells what to keep and what not. Similarly, usually NoFap goes by the name of Brahmacharya. Now that's where the problem is. You see, Brahmacharya is about living in a way that leads you to Brahm. I'll explain that. Brahm is not a thing. Brahm is not a place. No destination is Brahm. Brahm is to be understood only via negativa. Brahm, Satya, Atma, same thing. No difference at all. Brahm simply means that which is not false, not that which is truth. Because the truth, as we said right in the beginning, is unknowable, agyeya. Therefore, the process of Vedanta or Adhyatma is neti. negation. So live in a way that does not reinforce your foolishness. That is brahmacharya. Charya refers to living, practically living. All the vyavahar that you do throughout the day, that's charya. Charya. Char means movement. When you say char is movement. So charya comes from there.
Got it.
And Brahm is negation of falseness. So live in a way that continuously negates the false. Do not fall prey to the false. That's brahmacharya.
Beautiful.
And your own mind is continuously in an attempt to befool you.
Yes.
Or rather, you are your own enemy. You are your own enemy.
Yeah.
So be on guard against yourself. Here in the foundation, we often say, "Hey Ram, mujhe mujhse bacha." So that's brahmacharya. That's brahmacharya. Be cautious. You will fool yourself. That's brahmacharya. Now, at least directly, that has nothing to do with virya raksha. No. What these people have done is that they have equated bindu with semen. Now, bindu, drop, boond, that is a euphemism for something that is but is not spatial. Just as you have a point, right? You can define space around the point. You can draw a circle around the point. And you can also specify the point using coordinates.
Yes.
But can you ever put your finger on a point? That's impossible. Can you ever say here is a point? So a point defines a space yet does not exist spatially. Right? So in that sense, as a pointer, not in a very exact way, but just as a pointer, Atma too was called Bindu. That it is present everywhere. Every point in space
Is a point.
is a point. So it is present everywhere, yet you cannot locate it anywhere.
Right.
Present everywhere, yet not detectable anywhere. So that way, the truth is Bindu. Now, from that position, they brought it down to mean a drop of semen. And they said that brahmacharya is about virya raksha. No, brahmacharya is not about virya raksha. That does not mean that you have to go on masturbating endlessly.
Right.
All that is quite stupid. But brahmacharya is something very high, very sublime. It has a very beautiful and tremendous connotation. It cannot be equated with not masturbating. No fap.
So it almost sounds like there was a simplistic answer to a complex
Yes.
issue.
Yes. And that was a peripheral response to something that demanded that you treat the very core. Now, instead of treating the core that is full of desires, let's say for women, because the term is used mostly for men, no fap. Now, you don't want to examine why your mind is full of lustful thoughts.
Yes.
Instead, you are directing the other in a very moral way. Not directing, you're dictating actually. Do not masturbate. How exactly is that going to help? Is that not stupid? I mean, one should go into the mind and ask, why don't I have something better to do in life? Why am I always thinking of women? That's the core problem. And why do I have so much spare time? Think of someone who is living rightly.
Right.
If he has spare time, spare energy, he would probably attend to his work or go and run or go and swim or do something.
Yeah.
As a young man, because this again is something that is pertaining to young men. As a young man, there is so much you have to do in life. And also you have the energy to maybe spend in a gym or do something. And then you come and you crash. You are already half asleep.
Correct.
So if you're living rightly, you're living rightly, no fap and other things become redundant. And if you're not living rightly, then again these things are not going to help. But
That
fads come and go.
that actually makes sense, because because I have had patients who've come to me having seen some of these videos, and they're very frustrated. They can't sleep, and they've gone through nofap for 2 months, 3 months, and I've really had to explain to them the biology of what happens in the body.
You are approaching brahmacharya. When you probably forget that you have not masturbated. If you are constantly remembering not to masturbate, then you are already masturbating. You don't always have to ejaculate to masturbate. It's going on in the head.
Right.
That's very much masturbation. Just that the body is not yet climaxing, but the mind is full of lust, and that's masturbation. Is that not? You are approaching brahmacharya when all this lust, etc., becomes secondary. You come upon something so demanding, so beautiful, so urgent, so important, so meaningful, that you forget all about nonsense and other things in life. That's brahmacharya.
Right. Finding something that adds true purpose.
Finding something that adds true. And when you are engaged in something purposeful, who thinks of lust and such things? You need to have a pretty barren life to be constantly thinking of women and lust.
Right. Today, in the nation and across the world, Hinduism is going through a sort of a transition, which I'm struggling to understand. Where is it going wrong? With, of course, the core terms being Hinduism versus Hindutva. Where did that turn happen, and what is it that is going wrong, and what should be the way back?
It started with the emergence of dualistic interpretations of Vedanta in the 11th and 12th centuries. That process of dualistic interpretations continued right till 15th, 16th centuries. What is a dualistic interpretation? It's very interesting. So, Vedanta, which is actually Advaita Vedanta, that's how the entire world knows this. Advaita is the Vedanta. But as you know, Advaita is not the only Vedanta.
Correct.
There are other interpretations of Vedanta.
Yes.
So, Advaita is total subjectivity. There is me. There is me. And I do not need anybody to attest that, because that is the only thing I do not need anybody else for. If there is no me, who is asking this question? Yeah. If there is no me, who is the sufferer? So, this much and only this much is certain, I am. I might be false or whatever, but I am. Even if I am false, I am. In dualistic interpretations, which exist in India, which also exist across the world, if you look at, for example, the Abrahamic streams, they all are dualistic. There you don't say only I am. There you say I am and there is the creator God.
In Advaita, even that is not.
In Advaita, there is no creator God. There is no creator God. No God created this. Not at least at the top level, Paramarthik level. At the Vyavaharik level, you can worship your favorite God, which is fine.
So here, at the lower level, it might be polytheistic.
Yes.
But at the higher level?
At the highest level, there is just monism. Nothing else.
It's not even monotheistic. It's
not even monotheistic.
Atheistic.
It is atheistic, definitely atheistic. In that sense, if you want to.
Yes.
Otherwise, it can be used in a very disparaging sense also.
Right.
But Advaita Vedanta says at the middle level, you are free to worship your favorite gods and goddesses. But a point comes when you have to realize that it's just you. the Supreme Self, and accept that there is no reality. So Satya, which is Atma and Brahma, that is beyond all the gods and goddesses that you worship. But that's not the way of the dualistic interpretations. What do they say? They say, I am, and I am this body. I'm not the one who is looking at the body, I am the body itself. So that's the point from where all the dualistic schools start, in India and abroad. And because I am the body, therefore the universe has to be material.
Yes.
Because if I am the body, this sofa has to be real. If this sofa has to be real, this stage has to be real. So the ground beneath it, the earth has to be real.
Other people have to be real.
The other people have to be real, and the entire universe then has to be real. So everything is real. And if all this is real, where does all this come from? If all this is real, it has to come from somewhere, because if I am real, then the shirt that I am wearing came from a factory, a creator. Therefore, if I am real, the entire universe comes from a creator God.
Logical.
Logical? Very logical. The next problem is, nobody has seen that God. But I came from that God. So I need to have some history. So then I weave stories about my God. And the stories that you weave about your God will never align with the stories that I weave about my God.
Even if it's the same God.
Even if it's the same God.
Right.
Therefore, there will be conflict.
Right.
Now, that's what is happening with Hinduism today. It is moving more and more in direction of stories. You have your stories and you want them to be believed as the truth. And if you do not believe in my story, then you are my enemy.
So even inside Hinduism, because there are many, so there is Shaivism, there is Vishnuism, there is Shaktiism. Different people will follow different set of stories and teachings. They are fighting.
Oh, there is tremendous conflict. Tremendous conflict between the Vaishnavas and the Shaivas.
Yes.
Tremendous conflict.
And the reasons for the conflict almost
same thing. I have my favorite God. I know what the God did. I have complete belief in my God.
And my God is better than your God.
Because he is God. He is the God.
The God.
He is the God. Your God is in fact not God at all.
God at all.
Not God at all. Out of just courtesy, I might say mine your God. But in my heart, I believe mine is the God.
And you are mistaken.
You are mistaken, obviously.
And someday you will realize.
Someday you have to realize, and I have to be a missionary who is out to proselytize you. Therefore, I'll be on a conversion spree. And that's what Christianity and Islam have done. That's what people in India also want to do now.
And this applies to my belief systems also. So the way I live my life is how you should live your life.
How you should live your life.
And Advaita does not.
It is basically an expression of my ego, you see. Because he is my God, therefore he is the real one. Ego extending itself to that extent. He is the God because he is my God. My God. This kid is the best because
he's my kid.
He's my kid. This house is the best because it is my house. This country is the best because it is my country. Same thing.
My national anthem won the best anthem award.
Same thing. Same thing. Just an expression of that good old ego.
The old limbic system playing its role.
Playing its role.
At the highest stages.
At the highest stages. With disastrous consequences.
I think that made a lot of things click for me.
We talk of liberalism. Sanatan Dharma. Talks of liberation, not just liberty. Unfortunately, that same religion is turning into a den of dogma. We said in the early parts of our talk, there is nothing prohibited really in Adhyatma or Vedanta. All you are told to do is look at what you are doing. After that, it's your own game, your life, your choice. But please do honestly look at what is happening. So ours really is the pinnacle of liberalism when it comes to the various religions. And it's a sad thing to see that we are turning more and more, you know what?
So my theory is that everyone will go towards the least effort path. And I feel that understanding non-duality takes effort, cognitive effort.
Oh, it not just cognitive effort, hurts.
It hurts.
It tells you that which you think of as your life is not your life. That which you think of as your choice is not your choice. That which you think of as your love is not your love. It is just a chemical thing.
So it is almost violent.
It's almost violent. It humiliates. It strips you down to the core.
Yes.
And people run away. I experience it every day.
Yes.
Irrespective of how much you want to sugarcoat it, it really bites.
Yeah. It is not easy.
Not
There
easy.
was that story of Shankaracharya who had to leave, and his mom was
Insisting that,
story, right?
yes.
And the crocodile comes in, and there was a story of he has to give up his mom, his family, in order to truly go down.
The mother has to relieve him if his life has to be saved.
Yes.
And only then the mother says, "Fine, son, go." So that's the story. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remembered that. So that is hurtful.
That's hurtful.
There's a reason why people will not go down that path.
Yes. But if you do not go down that path, it will hurt you all the more. What's the alternative? You know, we might opt for the easier route. It takes us nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's the only route. And it's not a route. We said it's the pathless path. Nobody is dictating any terms, any paths to anybody.
That's a Buddhist.
That's a Buddhist thing. It's a Buddhist thing.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it yourself. And but the thing is, if you're honest in looking at yourself, what you will see would not be pleasant, at least initially. But one must have the guts to stand that, no? It's like entering into your own self and discovering there is a dungeon in there with a lot of rotten things and a basement with full of primitive stuff that has decomposed and that needs to be cleared away. So it's that kind of thing.
Which brings us back to the first point that you said, which is spirituality is self-observation without bias.
Without bias, and with a lot of love and courage. If you don't have that love, if you don't have that, then the bias would inevitably creep in.
Yeah.
That has brought us incidentally to a very beautiful word that we have not used so far, not looked at so far. Love. We often think of Advaita as something dry, and we have spoken of it in those terms even today. It hurts, it bites, there is rigor and such things. It's born out of love. All those things, the hurt, the bite, you can bear only if there is love. Love for the truth, love for yourself.
Love to know.
Love to know. Only when you have that pulsation within, that beating heart within, can there be unbiased self-observation. So it's not as if the path of self-observation is a path devoid of love. No. It's a path that is founded on love.
I think this is the feeling I would like to leave everyone with who's watching this, which is when you step out into this journey of self-observation, the feeling that you should have in you is one of love and curiosity to get to your own truth. Nothing else. You're not doing this for anyone else. As you said, there is no one else.
And also you need to be a little jovial, not too serious. You see, because you'll see unpleasant things when you come upon them.
Yeah.
If you become too serious about them.
That's the beautiful thing about irony.
Yeah.
If you can appreciate irony,
you'll have to smile at it. You see, otherwise you will turn a hypocrite.
Right. It's the nature of ego.
The nature of ego. You will look at things that stink. Now, unless you just make a joke of them, or you'll have to deny their existence and get into all kinds of subversions.
Yes.
So one must be able to accept oneself as a fool. I'm an idiot, I'm a fool, and I'm happy with that. I laugh at myself. Yes, I do things that are very stupid. And an even greater stupidity is that I often do not see things as stupid. And ha ha ha.
Correct. There is this instinct in all of us to be so prim and proper all the time. But there's not.
One has to take himself lightly.
Right.
Who am I?
I love it. As soon as you said that, I relaxed. I was like, "ठीक है यार." Oh man, Acharya ji, thank you so much for this. I realized that we could have an entire night of conversation.
Oh,
Between science and spirituality, there is so much to intervene.
You know, I have spent so many nights doing just that. So many nights. So many. And I have been privileged to have people who could tolerate me all night.
Incredible. I'm going to be having another conversation with you. It'll be a shorter one, but that'll be specifically on Bhagavad Gita. To dive into my own curiosities, we are going to take a little tour down chapter 1 to 18, but I will see you in that one.